Alright guys, just one thing left to do, and that's to load the extra pages when we scroll up in our scrolling list, and also fix that loading icon. So here we are, I've opened up the listings list page, and what we want to do is load up the next 20 listings from our API. So recall that when we scroll down to the footer, we have this onRefresh handler that fires off the logic load next page. And if we go to that logic load next page, you can see that it's a signal. And if we go to our data model, its connections currently don't have the load next page. It only has for the searching. So we need to tell it to connect to that signal. So let's have onLoad next page. And then what are we going to do? Well, we're going to call that client. And remember, the client is contained in the property cross main item. Oh, no, it's not. Excuse me on that. It's actually right here inside the data model. So we're going to go off to that client. And we're going to fire off the repeat for page. And so this takes a page number and the callback before. Remember, in our client, we store the previous query, and that allows us to repeat it, but with a different page. So let's have underscore dot current page plus 1 underscore dot response callback. All right, let's get rid of those brackets, and that should do it. So this is going to pull out the current page, add 1 to it, and send the response callback. Okay, so if we run that in our live server, now we should be able to get that next page. So let's run this, London, go. Obviously our loading icon is still there, but we'll fix that shortly. When we scroll down, we get our another loading icon. And you know why it doesn't work? Because I didn't press save. Control S. It's always the simple stuff in this game. I forgot a curly brace. Didn't press load. Okay, let's scroll down. It loads, and then we have our next lot. It loads, next lot. Next lot. Okay, so that all works perfectly. Now let's fix this little spinning loading icon. So where are we going to do this? Also in our data model. So let's think where do we use it first? Well, in the listings list page, it's trying to get the loading from data model. So when we go to our data model.qml, what we want to put in here is yet again another read-only property. And this type is obviously going to be Boolean because that's what we're testing. We need to call it loading. And what is its value? Well, this is going to go off to that existing client and find the loading value. So I'm just going to save that. And if we look inside the client itself, you'll notice it has a property called loading, which is leeching, for want of a better word, off of this HTTP network activity indicator. So remember, that's a system level thing, and that gets fired whenever there's some HTTP activity. So it's quite handy in that we don't need to specify loading when we first send our request. So here, we do it sort of somewhere here. And then once we come out the request, we would do it in one of these functions or in a couple of these functions to make sure it ended. We don't have to worry about that because the system does it all for us. So now if we look at our live server and we go and search for London, that loading icon disappears. But watch very carefully in the top right as I scroll down to the next page. There it is. There it is. Now, of course, I'm on a fast broadband connection, but if you're on a mobile device, you'd probably see it for a bit longer than that. Okay, and recall that we set its activation delay to 0 instead of 1000, which is 1000 milliseconds or 1 second. And the reason we did that was, well, on a fast connection, you probably wouldn't see it because you do the whole request within, I don't know, 1 to 200 milliseconds maybe. But on a mobile device, you might actually see it. Okay, so everything works. We've built out our list. We can see property details. We haven't yet figured out how to do the favoriting heart button at the top right, but otherwise everything else is showing okay.